US Route 19. Yeah! Alright, hello everyone, I am Quartermons437, and in this video we are finally going to start talking about US Route 19 Northbound. And if you have not been keeping up with my US Route 19 series, then here is my reminder to you all that US Route 19 is a north and southbound US route that begins at a junction with US 41 just north of Bradenton, Florida, and makes its way all the way up north to Erie, Pennsylvania, and passes through the states of Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia along the way. And here is one more look at the map of the route that we will be following. And with all that said, if you enjoy what you saw today, please be sure to leave a like, drop a comment down below if you have any feedback for me, or if you want to discuss this highway any further. And if you really enjoyed it, please be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. So, with all of that said, let us start talking about Northbound US Route 19. And we begin here, again, of course, at this junction with US 41. And on these overhead signs, we can see that US 41 is signed north for Port Manatee and Tampa. I think you could probably just have Tampa on there. But we are getting signed to Interstate 275, Sunshine Skyway, and St. Petersburg. So, interesting. They're telling us the name of the road, but they're also giving us a sensible control city to start with, because St. Petersburg is, well, one of the biggest things that US 19 passes through on its whole route, and it's right at the beginning of Northbound. Before we even really finish merging onto US 19 Northbound, we get our first mileage sign right away, and it is a 3-line one, and it has St. Petersburg on the top line at 19 miles away. Clearwater is our secondary at 34 miles away, and we get Perry on the bottom line at 214 miles away. And I really don't think that is necessary at all. Perry is a pretty small town. Yeah, there's like a couple of junctions there, but I really don't think it is necessary to sign from 214 miles away, especially on a bottom line. I think you could just do St. Petersburg and Clearwater, just have the two of those. Those would do the job just fine. Honestly, I wouldn't even mind seeing a 1-line mileage sign with St. Petersburg just by itself at 19 miles away, and then if you want to do a 3-line mileage sign, well, I'll get into it a bit later. I think we merge in with Interstate 275, and I didn't want to mention this fact in Southbound Part 2 because I just wanted it to be happy vibes, because we were finally ending Southbound US 19 after 2 videos and a whole lot of time. But as far as I could tell, from the junction where 275 begins with Interstate 75, and at least as far north as St. Petersburg, I'm not sure where the range actually ends, but Interstate 275 is tolled, and here we are getting informed that we're going to have a toll plaza in half a mile. And here we are on our concurrency with Interstate 275 as we come into the St. Petersburg city limits going northbound. Although an interesting thing about St. Petersburg city limits is that they stretch pretty far, and at this point we are still quite a ways south of downtown. And now we split off from Interstate 275 as it gets signed for Tampa, and we can see that we are going to be signed Pinellas Bayway, and we also get Florida 682 thrown up on that overhead, and it is getting signed for St. Pete Beach. So we are getting the Kentucky treatment, which is basically we're just getting assigned the name of the road, and that is something that Kentucky likes to do a lot with their roads, hence the term the Kentucky treatment. So that is not great. I think Clearwater should probably be on that sign for our control city. Although US 19 becomes a frontage road north of St. Petersburg, and there aren't really any pull-throughs. Most of the overhead signs are just lists of exits coming up. So I had to get off of 19 and find this overhead sign, and Clearwater is in fact our northbound control city. Also, take a gander at this sign with the weird, I think that's Helvetica font, so that is really weird. And again, here's where we can see that that frontage road begins. So, yeah. Here is our next mileage sign going northbound, and we can see that we are now signed for Turpin Springs, Newport Richey, and Spring Hill is now our primary bottom line at 30 miles away. And I think that makes sense. That is really the northern extent of the Tampa, St. Petersburg, whatever metro area. Here in Newport Richey, I found these interesting signs telling you which lane you want to be in to go on different directions of US 19, so I've never seen anything like this. That's interesting. Here is another mileage sign with regular Port Richey on the top line at 2 miles away, Hudson on the second line at 8 miles away, and Spring Hill continues to be our bottom line at 19 miles away. And here we are meeting Florida Route 50, and is getting signed east for Brooksville and Orlando. That is pretty cool to see Orlando on there. Could probably just have that. And then here is another mileage sign with some place I'm not even going to try to pronounce on the top line, and Crystal River, 27 miles away on the bottom line. I guess that kind of makes sense. It's not really a big town by any means, but there's really not a lot in like central and northern Florida, in between Tampa, St. Petersburg, and Tallahassee. Here is a sign that I just thought was pretty crazy to see. When I think of Florida, I don't think of bears, and apparently we have a bear habitat for the next 12 miles, so be careful if you're driving on this road. Watch out for bears, I guess. Here we are meeting US 98 once again, and we get that awesome name of Chasahawitska at the left turn, and US 98 going the other way is signed for Brooksville, which I think makes a lot more sense in this direction. If you were going to Lakeland, you would have had other options to go there, so again, doesn't really make so much sense to sign in this direction. And then on the other side of that intersection, we get another mileage sign with that one place I didn't try to pronounce, still on the top line, 6 miles away. And now there are 3 lines actually. Crystal River is our second line at 13 miles away. And now we get Ingles on our bottom line at 24 miles away. And I do not think that should be a bottom line at all, because further north we will have routes that can take you over to Gainesville, which is way bigger than anything else that we meet on US 19 for quite a long time. So I think that should be prioritized over other smaller towns. And really the only thing I could see that they're signing English because of is this Florida 40, which apparently isn't even like an actual state route when it meets 19 and 98. But you can see if you stay on county Florida route, Florida whatever, then it will take you over to Florida 40. I don't know. I still think English should not be on the bottom line. But then here is another mileage sign in English. As we get Otter Creek 23 miles away on the top line. Chiefland is our secondary at 35 miles away. And Perry comes back onto the bottom line at 104 miles away, which I guess that's better than signing it from 214 miles away. But I think this should be Tallahassee instead, because you're kind of angling that way. In fact, I'd say it makes even more sense going this direction, because you meet up with US 27, which is the first route that'll take you there. And then there's obviously Interstate 10 and a couple other routes. In Chiefland, we're meeting up with alternate US 27 once again, although it doesn't get any control cities in this direction. Probably because, I guess, if you wanted to go to Ocala, you would have had other options to get there. And here we are meeting US 129, and it is getting signed for Trenton, Florida, Gainesville, and Live Oak. I think Gainesville will probably just do the job there. And also, this is another argument for why English should not have been on that sign, although maybe we would have had another way to get to Gainesville for this. But I mean, Gainesville is a pretty big city. The Dirtpog may not like that explanation, but Here are our reassurance shields for alternate US 27, 19, and 98 on this concurrency. Then we get another mileage sign with Perry as our bottom line, now only 67 miles away. And then Perry continues to hold up as we get closer, and Tallahassee becomes even more bottom line worthy. Here we are meeting the beginning of US 221, and we are going to be following Truck 221. This is where US 98 splits off, and we meet regular US 27, southbound US 27. You can make a right turn to get on it. And we can also see in the distance this North 221 shield, when I'm pretty sure US 221 isn't actually concurrent with us here, so I don't know why that shield is there. And then here's our next mileage sign. Interstate 10 is our top line at 33 miles away. Pretty interesting that they have a junction listed. And then Monticello, Florida is our secondary at 39 miles away. And we get Tallahassee on the bottom line at 51 miles away. So, woohoo! That's awesome to see. This is a great mileage sign because it lists a place that 19 goes and also a place that 27 goes. And, I mean, Tallahassee should have been the primary for a while now. We split off from US 27, now getting signed for Monticello, Florida. I guess I probably shouldn't be saying Florida because, like, that. In any case, we get this weird Junction US 19 sign. I don't know why that's there because we're on US 19 and it has kind of a weird shield design. But we can also see that we are to Interstate 10. And we will be making this right turn. Then we get another mileage sign with Monticello now only 10 miles away on the top line. And we get Thomasville, Georgia at 33 miles away on the bottom line. And I think that makes sense. That's the first kind of major town we'll pass through in Georgia. And here we are meeting Interstate 10 as it gets its great westbound choice of Tallahassee, and no comment. And then here is another mileage sign with Thomasville 27 miles away on the bottom line. We come into Monticello once again and meet US 90 at this beautiful roundabout. Although, unfortunately, US 90 does not get an eastbound control city, so that's a little lame. But at least, again, we can see the Jefferson County Courthouse, and yeah, pretty cool roundabout. And then we get a one-line mileage sign with just Thomasville at 21 miles away, and I'll be honest, I'm actually not too upset about that, because there are not a ton of big places in Georgia, although I would kind of like to see Albany on this sign, although I do understand it is a bit far away at this point. And here we come into Georgia, and we got this Georgia state line sign followed by their proper welcome sign a little bit down the road. And I want to point out something, because I did not notice this on the Southbound Part 2 video. We get mileage markers in Georgia, but they work pretty weirdly. I'll talk a bit more about it later on, but for now, just keep this mile zero marker in the back of your head. And then we get another mileage sign with Thomasville now on the top line at 14 miles away, and some town I'm not going to try to pronounce on the bottom line at 25 miles away, which I don't think should be there, because I think there are better choices for that coming up. And here we are meeting US 84 once again, and unfortunately we don't really get any control cities on US 19, but if we look at the off-ramp there, we can see that there is a green sign, and I believe East 84 is getting signed for Valdosta, which is really cool. Leaving that interchange, we get a 3-line mileage sign with Cairo, Georgia, 20 miles away. That is there because of US 84, which is now concurrent with us. We get Camilla as a secondary at 33 miles away. And our bottom line is now Albany at 60 miles away, and that is a great choice. And then here we are meeting US 319, and it gets signed for Thomasville, because technically we are not really in the town at this point. Downtown Thomasville is a bit west of here, and it gets signed eastbound for Moultrie. And for our concurrency of 19 and 84, we are getting Camilla, Cairo, and Pelham. So no Albany on there. I do not like that, although I think one of these could stay, probably Camilla, or maybe Pelham. I'm not sure which one is bigger, but these are fine secondaries, at least, I think. Georgia has one-upped Pennsylvania's signage on Interstate 80 eastbound with this 4-line mileage sign. In theory, our primary here is Albany at 58 miles away. Although before that, we get Camilla listed at 31 miles away, which in theory is our secondary here. And of course, we get Cairo, Georgia at 18 miles away. That is our top line. Although our bottom line is Pelham, 22 miles away. That is a closer secondary. And yeah, this sign is just really weird and makes no sense at all. Although at least they do have the correct primary, in theory, listed on this sign. So, I don't know. Here is where US 84 leaves our concurrency, and as I stated before, it is the one that is going to Cairo, Georgia. And interestingly, we get mentions of US 319 on this sign, although we are not actually meeting it here. this road that we are intersecting, it leads to US 319, and it is getting the same control cities that we saw on an equivalent sign that we saw that looked just like this in Southbound per 2. So I think you could probably just do Thomasville again on this sign, because you already had multiple other options to go to Tallahassee at this point, so it's not the best choice for 319. I mean, I guess I like seeing it on there because, you know, it's Florida's capital and 319 leads to Tallahassee. I don't know. What I definitely do not like is after leaving that intersection, we get this one-line mileage sign with Pelham on it, 25 miles away. No! There should be 2 lines on this sign, with Pelham being the first one and Albany being on the second one. This is so ridiculous. Why is Georgia doing what we saw on US 219 northbound in Pennsylvania, where they had Carrolltown only 8 miles away? Although at least Pelham is bigger than Carrolltown by a factor of like 4. I don't remember. But either way, it should definitely not be the only line on this mileage sign. Here we are crossing into Mitchell County, and remember how I said that the mileage sign, like the mile markers in Georgia, make no sense? Well, about 30 miles or so into Georgia, and they have now reset. Apparently, the mileage, like the mile markers, they reset at every county line, so I think that is weird and completely unhelpful. I think you should just have a running tally of all the miles that US 19 has been in Georgia. And here we are meeting Georgia Route 93, which is, I believe, the only reason we were signing Pelham. And the other way gets signed for Sail City, and now Albany comes back onto the sign, so that is good. And Albany is 35 miles away, as we can see by this mileage sign, where it is on the bottom line, thankfully. The highway sign 6615 on YouTube pointed this out to me. Here is a partial cloverleaf interchange with Georgia routes 133 and 234. Although, if we look on Google Maps, we can see that this used to be a full cloverleaf interchange, but the ramps to access Georgia routes 133 and 234 were removed at some point. So that is pretty interesting. And then just a little bit up the road in Albany, Georgia, we are meeting US 82 once again, along with Georgia routes 520 and 300. And they all get signed for Atlanta and Cordele. Although neither of these places US 82 actually goes to, so I think they're favoring the Georgia state routes here. I mean, pretty cool that we get an Atlanta mention here, although I kind of would like to see one place that US 82 actually goes to on this sign. But in any case, we have our brief concurrency with US 82, and on this overhead when we exit off of US 82, we're getting signed Slappy Boulevard, so again, another name for a road of a sign, and Atlanta! We get signed for Atlanta! That is pretty cool, because we are still very far away from Atlanta, but I mean, we go to Atlanta, so yeah, I'm pretty excited to see that. And if we look at our next mileage sign, we can see that's even on the bottom line at 168 miles away. So that is pretty cool to see. Although I wonder if it will actually hold up. And it does not. After we leave the Albany area, we get this mileage sign with Americus on the bottom line at 24 miles away, so I guess I can kind of understand not signing Atlanta from so far away on this kind of road. But then again, Florida was signing St. Petersburg from a farther distance away, so I don't see why Georgia can't do the same thing. But I mean, at least Americus is kind of sizable, and there isn't other stuff along the way that I'd rather see, like Smithville, which is on our top line. I'm glad that's not the bottom line. And coming into Americus, or at least kind of south of it, either way, here we are meeting US Route 280, and we're going to have a brief concurrency with that. And on the other side of that intersection, we get this mileage sign with Cordial on the bottom line at 32 miles away, and I don't know if that's really the right choice here, because I think if you wanted to go to Cordial, you would have had other options to go to that. Although, I guess it's sort of a sizable town, so I don't know. Psychedelic Norwal wanted to see the northern junction of US 19 and 280, or in this case, where US 280 splits off from our concurrency. So here is that for you. Thank you for the request. On our next mileage sign, we get Ellaville 12 miles away on the top line, and Buena Vista 27 miles away on the bottom line. And Ellaville is where we meet Georgia Route 26, and it is the one going to Buena Vista. So we're favoring Georgia Route 26, and I do not like that at all. I believe it should be Griffin on the bottom line from here, because that's the next major town that we'll be going to. And then on this mileage sign, it's only one line, which is Butler at 22 miles away. No, put Griffin on it. Butler is just where we meet Georgia Route 96. And then at our intersection with Georgia Route 96, it gets signed for Geneva, which is a really tiny town of like not even 100 people. That should say Columbus, because it's going to take you over to US 80, which will be going to Columbus, which is a big city in Georgia. So put Columbus on that, and definitely do not sign Butler on US 19 as a primary. Maybe put it as a secondary, but yeah, definitely not on a one-line mileage sign. And we are now getting signed for Thomaston, which I'd still kind of like to see Griffin there, but at least Thomaston is a kind of big city. Well, it's like 15,000 people if I remember correctly, so yeah, I mean, it's fine, I guess, for this direction sign, but again, I'd rather just Griffin. But on our next mileage sign, Griffin does come onto our bottom line at 55 miles away, and Griffin is bigger than Thomaston, so I like that. And when we have our brief concurrency with US 80, Griffin still holds up on the bottom line at 40 miles away, and they don't favor US 80 this time, because last time it got signed for Columbus. Although I liked that. That was a good instance of Georgia favoring another route. And when US 80 splits off, it gets signed for Macon going eastbound. So that is pretty cool. Macon is another pretty big city in Georgia. And then our next mileage sign is a 3-line mileage sign. Thomaston is 12 miles away on the top line. We get Griffin on the second line at 38 miles away. And Atlanta has now come back on our bottom line at 79 miles away. Woohoo! Good to see. Here in Thomaston at this traffic light, we get these interesting overhead signs. If informing us of all the control cities for the different routes that are at this intersection. Georgia routes 36 and 74 get signed for Woodland and Columbus, and then Woodbury and Greenville, respectively. And now we get signed for Zebulon and Atlanta straight ahead. I think just Columbus and Atlanta would do the jobs for 36 and 19 respectively. And if we're going to go with 2 for 19, I think I'd rather see Griffin and Atlanta. But at least Atlanta is on there for us, so cool. Although on our next mod sign, we get Zebulon on the top line and Griffin on the bottom line. I really don't think you need Zebulon there at all. Just have Griffin and Atlanta, because we're not that far away from Atlanta now. Here we are meeting and going to be concurrent with US 41 once again. And Business 19 and 41 are getting signed for Griffin. 41 South is getting signed for Barnesville, and we are now getting signed to Interstate 75, which I'm not really sure how to feel about that. But after passing through Griffin, we get this smallest sign, which does not have Atlanta at all. We get Sunnyside 5 and Hampton 7. Again, absolutely no mention of Atlanta. So they're basically just going back to how they were doing it on southbound north of Atlanta, which is just having the worst mileage signs ever. What the heck are you doing here, Georgia? This mileage sign is absolutely terrible. Ugh. Put Hampton as the top line and then Atlanta. Yeah, we should be signed for Atlanta at this point. Ugh. Here we are meeting Interstate 75, and we don't get any control cities for it, and looking back at southbound part 2, I don't think we got any control cities for it at least one of the times that we met it, and I didn't mention that, so that's kind of lame, but it is what it is, I guess. Here we are meeting the Atlanta Beltway for the first time, Interstate 285, and it does not get any control cities either, although I guess that's kind of understandable because you could basically sign anything for 285 because it meets with Interstate 75, 85, its parent, 20. There's all sorts of places you can get to off of 285. And here we are meeting Interstate 85 once again, where we have northbound access only. And once again, we don't get any control cities for the road that we're meeting. But if we look at this pull through that we can see here, northbound 85 is getting signed for Atlanta because we are still south of downtown at this point, so that is pretty cool. I forgot to show this on southbound 19 part 2, but this overpass carries Interstate 20 and we have no access to it, obviously, because we are starting to kind of get into urban Atlanta, and look at these buildings around us. There is no place for ramp here. And in downtown Atlanta, we're meeting up with and going to be concurrent with US 29 once again, along with US 41. Also, I didn't mention it earlier, but the Dirtbog wanted me to mention that he did a US 41 Southern video, so I will leave a link to that up in the cards. Go check that out. And here at these reassurance shields, US 41 goes away and we only get US 19 and 29, so that's pretty weird. And here we are meeting US 278 and 78 once again. And I am actually kind of familiar with US 278 because it goes to Hilton Head, South Carolina. Had a few wonderful vacations there. Hope I can go again sometime. But once again, this is where we have 6 concurrent highways, although they don't tell you that fact because there'd just be so much signage, I guess. And then here is where we split off from US 41. And now we're meeting the Atlanta Beltway, Interstate 285 once again. And we get no control cities on this pavement, but if we look over to our right, we can see the control cities of Atlanta and... I'm sorry, I cannot take that town name seriously. And we also get Glenridge Drive, which I don't think you really need that on there. And here we are splitting off of Interstate 285 as we are now going to be concurrent with Georgia Route 400 as we are going to... There, I said it. Here's another look at the 19 and 285 interchange. We can see it's pretty crazy with all these ramps going all over the place. Hey Georgia, since there technically isn't actually a speed limit listed on this sign, does that mean I can go as fast as I want? Here is a laundry list of exits that we have coming up on US 19 because there are quite a lot of them here in this northern suburban area of Atlanta. And Tiger Raven wanted to see exit 10 on US 19 and Georgia 400, which is Old Milton Parkway going to Alpharetta. So thank you for that request. And we can also see that the next exit after that is also getting signed for Alpharetta, which is the Windward Parkway. So that is pretty interesting. And then on our next mileage sign, we get coming at 4 miles away. And then we get this town that I'm not going to try to pronounce again at 26 miles away, which I guess is better to sign in this direction than northbound, because going southbound, every control city in northern Georgia was dwarfed by Atlanta's 500,000 people. So, yeah, I really don't know what else you would go with. Here we are meeting up with and going to become concurrent with Georgia 60 once again as it gets signed for Gainesville going the other way, and we are getting signed for, again, I don't know how to pronounce that, but if you saw Southbound Part 2, then you would know that I kind of complained about our concurrency going that way, getting signed for Gainesville, which, yeah, Georgia 60 is fine to sign Gainesville on, although I still think that you should have been signing Atlanta for 19 southbound, but I don't know. Here is our next mileage sign, and we now got Ella J on the bottom line at 44 miles away. So in this case, they are favoring Georgia Route 52, which we'll be meeting shortly. And I mean, I'd rather see that than Blairsville, which is like half of the size of LJ and absolutely is not primary worthy at all. So here is where we meet Georgia routes 9 and 52, and 9 gets signed for Dawsonville, which was another city that they favored over 19's theoretical primary of Atlanta. And now we are going to have a 3-highway concurrency of 19 and Georgia 52 and 60 as we get signed for Blairsville. Oh, no. And it comes on to our bottom line at 36 miles away, so I am not happy about that. 600 people. Here is the southern end of our concurrency with US 129 once again, as we get bad and absolutely horrible. US 129 is getting signed for Cleveland, and we are still getting signed for Blairsville. Although, I guess in this case, Cleveland is not too bad for US 129 because I'm not sure what else it really goes to besides Gainesville, which if you wanted to go to, you might as well have just gotten on Georgia 60, although, again, Gainesville kind of a big town for these parts, but I don't know. It definitely should not be Blairsville going northbound. It should be Murphy, North Carolina. Well, how about that? So we make our left turn to begin our US 19 and 129 concurrency, and then we get this mileage sign, which has Blairsville on the top line at 22 miles away, and then we do get Murphy on the bottom line at 41 miles away. So that's a little bit better at least. Here we are meeting up with and going to become concurrent with US 76 as well as Georgia 2 and Georgia 515 once again. Although they do not tell us that US 76 is on this pavement, we only get this blue Georgia 515 shield, so I don't like that. And here are our reassurance shield for all of these highways concurrent on this pavement. And here is where we split off of US 76, and Georgia has made another shield error. At this intersection, US 129 is once again mislabeled as Georgia 129. And this one is really, really stupid because if we look at the pavement that we're going to be turning onto, we can see a correct US 129 shield. So, hey Georgia, how about you fix that sign? Along with some of the other ones that we saw in Southbound Part 2. And then we get this one line mileage sign with Murphy at 22 miles away, so I guess that's probably okay because for a while in North Carolina we don't really hit anything else that would be primary worthy. And here we are coming into North Carolina. They were a mixed bag on Southbound Part 2, so let's see how this goes. And our first major intersection is where we begin our concurrency with US 64 and 74. We get 4 highways on one concurrency, and we get signed Chattanooga going west for 64 and 74. Once again, an awesome choice there. And the other way, we are getting signed for both Murphy and Asheville. So right away, we got Asheville. That is awesome. I like that. And here are our reassurance shields for the quad concurrency of 64, 74, 19, and 129 once again. And here we are coming into Murphy, where US 64 splits off to go to Hayesville. And that is not a great choice for 64 East. It should be Franklin on that sign. And yes, I'm confident about that one because it's not as far away as the Pennsylvania one was from Brookville. I don't know. I'm going to redo my 322 videos one day. Although, on our next sign with Control Cities, after we lose concurrency with US 64, we only get Andrews and Bryson City, so I'm not really too much of a fan of that. On Southbound, I was kind of okay with Andrews because there wasn't really too much else to sign, and Andrews and Murphy are roughly the same size, but on this sign, I definitely think it should just be Asheville because both 19 and 74 are going there. And then here we come into Andrews, and we only get this 19 business signed for Andrews, so they don't really give us any other control cities here, and I don't like that. Although, as we go around the town of Andrews, we get this beautiful scenery with the mountains here, so that is really cool. Here is where US 129 leaves our concurrency as it gets signed for Robbinsville, Fontana, and Knoxville. I think just Knoxville can do the job there. I don't really think you need 3 control cities for 129. And straight ahead, we are still getting signed for Bryson City, which I think should be Asheville. And then on our next mod sign, actually the first one I could find in North Carolina, because they're really stingy about those in this part. We got Bryson City on our top line and Cherokee on our bottom line at 33 miles away. So, again, where is Asheville? We split off of US 74 and we now get signed for Bryson City and Cherokee. Well, that was what was on that mileage sign. But right before we get to the ramp, we get this mileage sign with Waynesville on the top line at 39 miles away, and Asheville is on the bottom line at 66 miles away. So I guess North Carolina prefers that you would take US 74 to get to Asheville, and the Dirtpog has told me that it is actually faster to go that way. So I guess I could kind of see why they wouldn't sign Asheville, but the thing is, US 19 and 74 are concurrent and they're both going to Asheville. So I think you should still sign Asheville at the other signs up to this exit anyways. Ugh, North Carolina. Up to their old tricks. Here at this railroad crossing, yay, we make this right turn as we still get signed for Bryson City and Cherokee, and also 2 Blue Ridge Parkway. So once again, yeah, I guess that makes sense if you want to differentiate it from US 74. And here in Bryson City, I forgot to show this South Connector US 19, which takes you over to US 74, which is actually, I guess, how they want you to get to US 74 if you're coming from southbound. Although, if you're heading north and you got off of US 74 and you want to get back to 74, this is how you would go. But at our left turn, we can see that once again we're getting signed for Cherokee, as we also get Great Smoky Mountains National Park, so I guess that's cool to have on a sign. And then leaving Bryson City, we get this 3-line mileage sign, which has Cherokee 10 miles away on the top line, Silva on the second line at 18 miles away, and we get Asheville on the bottom line, 59 miles away. So that's pretty cool that even though I guess they really didn't want you going this way to get to Asheville, we get it anyways. So once again, I still don't understand why they couldn't have put it on other signs before this. And here we are meeting up with and going to become concurrent with US 441 very briefly once again. And we get a ton of control cities here, with the real stars of the show here being Atlanta for 441, because 441 doesn't go to Atlanta, but it needs other routes that go to Atlanta. So I'm really happy to see that there, even though we just came from Atlanta, but man, whatever. I'm sure traffic, like most traffic realistically, isn't going to be going all this way on 19. And we also get Asheville, Cherokee, and Maggie Valley for straight ahead. So basically all the information you would ever want right here. Here is where US 441 splits off of our concurrency, and I'm really curious about this Kobe Express restaurant. It's a Japanese restaurant, and I have to wonder if they actually serve real Kobe beef. If they did, it would probably be really expensive to eat there at a restaurant, but I'm sure it would be worth it. Unless they don't actually serve that kind of beef and they're just doing that for fun. Japanese. Here we are meeting up with US 276, and we're going to be concurrent with it again, and it gets the same awesome control city of Knoxville as before because it's meeting up with Interstate 40. And the Dirtbog showed me this. He says it's a bummer that I didn't show it on US 19 Southbound Part 2, but since he brought it up, I figured I would anyways. This ski town light thingy, this looks pretty cool. And here we are splitting off of US 276 as it gets signed for Waynesville and West Carolina University, and once again we're getting signed for Asheville. We meet up with US 74 once again, although this time we do it in a Y junction. So we have no access to westbound US 74 once again, as it crosses over us, and we can see eastbound 74 traffic coming in from the right. And we have another brief little concurrency with it before we split off to go to Clyde and Canton, as 74 gets signed to Interstate 40, Asheville and Knoxville. So that is a great sign by North Carolina. And I suppose those other towns help us to differentiate from 1923 and 74. We are very close to Interstate 40 at this point, and if we make a left turn, we can see that it is signed for Asheville going eastbound, and it's awful westbound choice of Canton going westbound, because I believe we just came from Canton, and it is only like 5 miles from here, so again, why not go with Knoxville? North Carolina provincialism at its finest. And here we are in Inca, Candler, whatever, once again, as US 19 and 23 get signed for Canton northbound and Asheville for us. So again, that is good to see. And here we are meeting Interstate 40 directly, technically the other intersection. We had to make a turn to get onto 40, even though it was right there. But either way, on this side, once again, as we did before, eastbound 40 gets no control cities. Although on the other side of the intersection is another sign for 40 West Canton, so here we are meeting up with and going to become concurrent with Interstate 240 once again, and it gets a combination of the Kentucky treatment, and we are now signed for Weaverville as opposed to Johnson City. So, North Carolina once again fumbling the ball here, and they've been doing a worse job than Southbound, because we haven't had too many great signs other than the last few where we've had Asheville or whenever it was signed for Asheville. Either way, here we are splitting off of Interstate 240, getting signed for UNC Asheville and Weaverville, and should be Johnson City. Although a little bit down the road, we actually do get a mileage sign with Johnson City on our bottom line at 59 miles away, along with Burnsville as our top line at 29 miles away. And I think that's a fine secondary, because that is where 19E and W will split off, and we will end this video. And then we get another mileage sign. Johnson City is still on our bottom line, now 9 miles closer, so a little bit of redemption for North Carolina after I was just complaining about them. And here we are splitting off of, I guess, future Interstate 26 here, and we get signed for Burnsville and Spruce Pine. And US 23A, actually, you have to turn off of when you get off the exit. 23A is not like concurrent with us or anything. but Spruce Pine was on there for that route, so I guess that makes sense. And as we continue along US 19 just by itself, as we head towards the EW split, we get some beautiful scenery here, so I like that. And we come to the southern US 19 E&W split near Burnsville, North Carolina. So that is where today's video will end. And next time, we will be following Northbound US 19E and the rest of US 19 Northbound all the way to Erie. So until then, everyone, this has been US 19 Northbound Part 1, and I would like to take a minute to outline my future plans for the next couple of road videos. So I originally recorded all of this in the middle of April, and it is now a few weeks later, but originally I had no idea what video I was going to upload after this one, because I wanted to take a little break from this US 19 series. And when I originally recorded all this, I had no idea what that video was going to be, but I believe now I have my answer. That video will be a video about US 220's alternate and business routes here in Pennsylvania. I think that will be a fun video for me to do in between these last two parts of the US 19 series. So this video will go up. I will then make the US 220 alternate and business routes in Pennsylvania video, and then we will finish off this series with Northbound Part 2. So there you go. Those are my plans for the next few videos. And until then, guys, thank you so much for watching US 19 Northbound Part 1. And I will see you all in the next video. Peace.